Thank you so much for joining. We have today the Tour du Mont Blanc part trip report and a part planning. And this is going to be a 30-minute quick presentation so that if you're on the fence about the Tour du Mont Blanc and you're not sure exactly what it's like, I'm going to give you the top 12 sort of topics around the Tour du Mont Blanc so that you can learn if it's good for you. So right here, glaciers, mountains, food, and no heavy backpacks whatsoever. Just an average day on the Tour du Mont Blanc. It was so good that I've decided to do it again this year. And actually 2 nights ago, I planned our entire trip for 6 of us. And I'm going to take my daughters this year because I want them to see it. I want them to see the glaciers. I want them to see all of this before it's, too late. All right. So briefly, table of contents, we're going to do an introduction and who it's for, pros and cons of the trail, some little bit of information on getting there, and then go over the accommodations because people have a lot of questions about that. Other things are the local transportation because it's not all on foot, surprisingly. And then we'll go over briefly what the dining and cuisine is like because, yeah, it's a hike, but that is a huge piece of it. And that's why it is such an incredible trail. Then briefly, we'll do a basic itinerary. This isn't comprehensive of every single place or whatnot, just to give you an overview of kind of what it could look like. And then go over the differences of how you book. Either it's independent, self-guided, guided trips. There's kind of a lot of different ways to go about it. And it was very confusing for me at first to know what was right. Then the overview of the budget and costs, a little bit about packing. And then if you stick around at the end, I'm going to give you my top 7 reasons why people fail the Tour du Mont Blanc. And this is based on now multiple years bringing multiple different types of people with us on our trips and my background as a physical therapist. And then finally, some contact info. All right. So who am I? If you haven't met, my name is Morgan Fielder, and I make hiking videos to help people over 40 have confidence to go on hiking, multi-day hikes and walking holidays, but always with a healthy dose of food and wine. So me, I'm a mom, a hot tub hiker, and a physical therapist, and I'm starting my mountain guide training. All right, so number 1, who is it for? I want to say everyone, but that's not true. Generally speaking, you'd want to have at least a moderate amount of experience hiking or a moderate amount of fitness. It's not a walk in the park. But you don't need to be an expert, and you definitely don't need to be a mountaineer because this is a hut-to-hut hike. You don't have to carry heavy things, and there are options for gondolas and, believe it or not, taxis at some points. So other people who it's for is just anyone who wants to soak in this nature, but not have to rough it every night with, camping. All right, so who is it not for? I would definitely say it's not for people who are total beginners at hiking. I mean, it could be done maybe if you're 22, but we're talking to a little bit more mature crowd. And I would say that it is important to not have the goal to be in the nature and be completely in the solitude. This is a very popular trail, and you will run into people quite a bit. I actually have created our routes to try to take advantage of all the different variants and side trails so that we do have a little less people on the trail, but it's not the backcountry and it's not completely wild. You're on the Tour du Mont Blanc, you will meet people. And that's for some people a pro and some people a con. All right. It's also not for people who hate elevation gain. This trail goes up and down over 10 massive alpine mountain passes. So you need to have some stamina to go uphill and, enough cartilage left in your knees or some good knee braces and trekking poles to be able to take some serious descents. It doesn't just go up to the top and then meander along the top. It goes up over the top and then down and then up over the top and then down. So, okay. Also, if you're not comfortable with variable weather, you don't want to come here. You never know here in the Alps. This year, there was crazy weather. In late June, there were blizzards. In early September, there were blizzards. And in between, maybe there was some good weather. Last year, it was pretty good weather the whole time. So you never know, and you can't plan. And unfortunately, you have to plan this trip so far in advance. It's very difficult, especially if you're more than just one person or you're just only wild camping, which is very kind of challenging on this trail because it's not legal in many places. You have to be prepared to deal with the weather, meaning rain, maybe some lightning, etc. Okay. As far as the pros go for the Tour du Mont Blanc hike, it is a beginner trek. So that's really great. You don't really need to have a ton of experience in the high alpine environment. You'll be staying more than likely in a village in some of the valleys or in one of the high mountain refuges. So that means that you don't have to carry a heavy backpack. You generally are not carrying a lot of gear. There's no crampons on this kind of deal. And it's something that most people can accomplish with, again, a moderate level of fitness. The next highlight is the scenery. You really get your money's worth on this one. The impossibly cute alpine villages, the wildlife like marmots and chamois, like the animals are pretty cool. You're not running into bears and wolves, thankfully. You might run into some dogs that are herding sheep, but that's about it. There's wildflowers everywhere and vistas like you can see so far. Sometimes you're in the forest, but not very often. Most of the time you have just expansive views. And you get to go by quite a few glaciers, which is amazing for, a beginner trail. And finally, the biggest highlight of all, I have to say, are definitely the mountain hut and refuge system. So whether you are in the French side, because the Tour du Mont Blanc goes through 3 countries, and you get the distinct cuisine and the distinct culture of 3 separate countries that surround Mont Blanc. So typically people start in France, move into Italy, food gets a little better, then they go into Switzerland, things get a little bit more expensive, but each region has their own specific culture, which is really great. Okay. As far as the cons go, it can be crowded, especially around the refuges, especially around the gondolas. You'll get some day hiking, traffic around when you get into Chamonix and Courmayeur. And the huts also can be very crowded. It's hard to get a private room quite frequently. I mean, you can pay a service sometimes. They have sort of sectioned off some private rooms. But a lot of the refuges or refugios in Italian, they're going to have bays of rooms, whether it's a 4-person bay, a 6-person bay. One of them, like Motets, everyone loves this refuge. I walked in, I didn't stay there. I walked in, I was just like, oh, sardines. So you're going to need to be okay sharing space with other people. Also at the dinner table, you'll be kind of often sat with other groups of people at the tables. The other con, it's just frustrating that you have to book ahead. So it's it's October 17th and October 15th. I was, online getting my reservations done, hut to hut, trying to figure it all out and I have a 7-day trip planned, and I have all but 1 night reserved. And I don't have that one reserved because they don't open their system until the 15th. And yes, it's a difficult, arduous thing. You can't just go on one website and just figure it all out. Like, it's a combination of books, websites, other websites, using Komoot, like a GPS app, going on Facebook groups, very helpful. And you kind of got to string it all together, and you need to be handy with spreadsheets, or you need to pay someone to do it for you. The other challenge is the elevation gain. It is a knee knocker. If you do the entire circuit, the full tour, it's at least 10,000 meters. This is like going up Everest. I mean, over the course of 10 days, right? So you are going to go up and down a lot. Again, you're not going to the top and sitting at the top. You're going up, and down. Okay, so as far as logistics go, getting to the Tour du Mont Blanc, the home base is in Chamonix, France, which is a fantastic place to go. It's like the home of paragliding in Europe. It's Oh, beautiful. It's a party town. So staying in Chamonix the night before might be a little rough, and getting some sleep. Often you'll kind of want to stay outside a bit, but it's a beautiful ski resort town, mountaineering, climbing, etc. And the Geneva airport in Switzerland is the closest one. It's about an hour bus ride away. There's a train as well, but it's cheap and easy to go from Geneva to Chamonix to start. And inside the valley, there are trains. So if you want to take the train, you can go from other hubs. And then driving is a piece of cake here. Parking can be challenging. So you have to arrange that with your hotels, or there is actually where the trailhead starts is in Les Ouches, which is one village away from Chamonix. A lot of people start in Chamonix or start Les Ouches, whatever. And also you don't have to go around counterclockwise. You can go around clockwise if you want. If you don't want to start in Chamonix, you can start in Courmayeur or other places. There's no hard and fast about this. So as far as these huts go, this is a photo I took of one of my favorite huts, Refuge de la Croix de Bonhomme. It's at like 2,400 meters, 2,500 meters, like on the top of a cliff. Yeah, that right there goes off. Poof, just amazing. But that's the thing. I think a lot of people don't realize that you don't have to stay in the mountain huts all the time, or maybe even any of the time. There's generally a workaround using taxis or buses that you can stay in a proper hotel in the valleys the whole time if you want to. And you can stay in huts the whole time if you want to. But usually people mix it up. So you want to have a hotel every third night so you can take a nice shower. A lot of the huts don't have running water. Sometimes if they run out, if it's very dry, or they're coin operated. As far as the hotel goes, Switzerland, France, Italy, there's a wide range. And I would say they're not incredibly expensive, but they're limited. It's a very small area, so they're not cheap by any stretch. If you want, you can even go into wellness hotels, which is fantastic, where you maybe take a 0 day, like an extra day in the town, and you can just hang out at the hotel all day and go to the sauna and go to the hot tubs, and they can feed you there. It's pretty nice. There's also budget inns. Okay, we've sort of talked about the mountain huts, and if you do, I have a post on my website, cravetheplanet.com, where I actually wrote down as many of the huts that I could find and gave phone numbers and described kind of how many beds they have, and that we can get an idea of what your options are. If you can score those private rooms, it's definitely worth it, in my opinion. The other option is camping. So like I said before, wild camping can be a little tricky, but there are campgrounds along the way. And like, for example, this refugio here, I always say refugio and refuge interchangeably, or mountain hut, kind of the same thing. Just the language thing. They had a camp. So anyway, this one, Bonhomme, had a campsite adjacent to the hut. So you basically pitch your tent there, and they had a separate bathroom for the campers. I think the campers can often purchase a meal a la carte if they arrange it ahead of time with the huts. There also, I have a camping post on my site that describes the exact rules of where you can and cannot wild camp in these 3 countries. People do get tickets if they break the rules. Sometimes they don't, often they do. Okay. The spreadsheet also is available on my site, where I have every campground listed. As far as the local transportation, so I said, yeah, most people are going to come here to walk it, right? That's the whole point. But as it often happens, you can't get the refuge that you need on the day that you need because it's fully booked or your group is too big. So what people do, and this is like such a mind bender, is that you find a way to bail off the trail, down into the valley. You call a taxi, or you prearrange it, or there often are buses if you get there in time, and then they can bus you or taxi you down to a different village. You stay there, you taxi back to the start, and then you're fine. A lot of people end up doing this. And I think most of the tour companies do this. They tend to have their people stay in hotels versus the mountain huts. Additionally, there's some boring sections that you might want to take the bus. Like, for example, in Les Contamines, it's like 4 kilometers along a river. which is great, but I didn't go to the Alps to walk on a flat river. So there's a shuttle bus that's, a few bucks, and you can just kind of skip that boring part if you're going to the campground, for example. Additionally, there's a big part from like people saying Bourg Saint Maurice on the third stage, and it's like 6 kilometers they can skip boring road walking by using the shuttle. And the websites are very good. They tell you the schedule. It's super easy to look up. The other thing that people don't think about is the gondola. And I actually created a 5-part video series about using gondolas as much as possible. Because, I'm 45 and I want to save my knees and I want to enjoy it. So those harsh downhills, it's not even so much about up, it's more about the down. And you can catch a gondola and you can sit down and you can just like skip the steep downhill into Courmayeur, and you can just completely enjoy the ride, which is great. There's several of them. And also they can help you skip some bad weather. And buying a day pass runs somewhere between 18 to maybe 25 for the gondola rides, depending on which one it is. And then speaking of, guided tours or self-guided tours, one of the things they often offer is luggage transport, which is pretty nice. I don't know that you necessarily need it. Often if you have luggage from, let's say you're going to go to Paris or you're going to go to Venice or you're going to do something else along with this hiking trip, you can leave your luggage very frequently at the hotel you start or have them just move that luggage one time to the end of your trip. But as this is a circuit for most people, you should just leave it at the hotel you stay at the night before the hotel. If you do luggage transport, often it's done by mule, as you see here. So the food to certain refuges comes by mule. If it's too wet for mules, then the people who work there have to put the food in their backpack and hike up 2 or 3 miles from the valley floor. The other Refugio Bonatti in Italy, they actually get their food by helicopter, which is super fun to watch. So I think it's strange when people complain about the food. So in that vein, okay, hold on, Bugsy. Hey, Bugsy, stop, come here. All right, the food. Oh, so we've hiked the Alta Via 1, we've hiked the Tour du Mont Blanc, we've done some other hut-to-hut hikes. I will not say that this is better than the Alta Via 1. I believe that the Italian Dolomites have better food. I'm going to die on that hill. But this is still really good too, right? So, each side has some different things. The cuisine, if you're staying in the huts, you're going to get a breakfast, which is generally very carb heavy and pretty basic. Sometimes it's better than that. But the dinners are usually 3 courses. You sit down. Sometimes it's served family style. Sometimes you order a la carte. It definitely varies. The Italian side's my favorite. But it's really cool because you can actually, even along the trail, find working cheese farms where you can watch them make the cheese from the cow, those crazy alpine cows with the cute bells on their necks. And they'll say, no, this cheese is from this valley and it's better than the other valley. We don't eat the other valley's cheese. It's pretty awesome. So the cuisine is a highlight for sure. The other thing that you might want to try out is sort of like the local wines from the region. And of course, a beer lunch is good for keeping up the energy. So here is an example itinerary. There's an asterisk here. And that is because it's never exactly like this. Because you're working so hard to get the refuges you need on the day you need in the right order, this is going to change a lot for a lot of people. Okay, hold on 1 second. Whoops. All right, back. We got that dogs. Okay. Uh-oh. We push play on got dogs fighting. Oy, oy, oy. Okay. So before I was so rudely interrupted by a dog fight, the itinerary, this is 10 days. And this is, generally speaking, trying to stay around 15 kilometers a day. Some people do this thing in 3 days, they run it. Some people do a 7-day kind of fast one. Some people take 15 days. They take 2 days in Chamonix. Some people take 2 days in Courmayeur. Some people, you can do it how you want, but often you're kind of forced into certain distances. It rarely ever works out just like this, where you can do an exact 15 kilometers a day. And also, there are variants. There are some really cool variants like the Col de Tricot, the Col de Four, the Col Sapin, but they add time or they change your route a little bit. So you're hitting different refuges that you can stay at. So you can, and you probably will have to adjust to this itinerary based on where you can stay and where you can get a spot for the night. Also, your pacing. If you're slow, you like to take a lot of pictures, you might not want to plan a 30-kilometer day. I have met people who are doing 30-kilometer days. That doesn't sound very nice to me, but maybe they like that kind of thing. So the other thing to consider is the lightning storms that are quite frequent in the Alps that hit in the afternoon. So a lot of people like to make sure their days are a little bit shorter, so they have enough time to get to the refugio before the lightning is supposed to come. But again, you never know. It could come at 9 a.m. Okay. So as far as the booking experience goes, that's the other thing, that there are choices. So I have done some 1 year where I paid a planner, basically what they'll call themselves like a self-guided travel agent or self-guided planner. And they do everything for you, but they don't hike with you. So that would be the self-guided, and you can have it be kind of on the moderate price, or you can decide that you want all private rooms, you want all the taxi transfers, etc. And so that's going to increase your cost. If you're more flexible, then, and your dates can change a bit, that'll be a little bit less expensive. They're going to do all the mapping for you, send you GPS. They're going to book all the huts for you. They're going to provide some level of service, but they're not going to be on the phone necessarily to answer all your questions right then and there. Like, oh, there's lightning. What should I do? They'll probably educate you on what to do, but it's self-guided. Okay. Now that's opposed to independent booking. So I also like to do independent booking as well, because I have certain preferences, and that's like no help whatsoever. Hey, she's a guard dog. So anyway, the independent booking, you need to be comfortable with spreadsheets. You need to be comfortable calling French and Italian and Swiss numbers, and bank transfers is really important, that you're going to need to be able to do for quite a few refuges. This is like using wise.com to move the money over. You need to find out your bailing options, find all the taxis and buses that you might need to take, and where to park, and all of those things. Be comfortable with spreadsheets. This has got to be done pretty much now, if not already. It's almost late in the game in mid-October to self-book, independently book. The other way to do it is a guided tour. So this is like classic, like you just give them money and you show up and they do everything. And you have a mountain guide that walks with you. And I think the cool thing about this, like I've done this as well on a different trail, you get a lot of local insight, which is really cool. I like supporting this kind of culture and this kind of work. And you learn some things that you might not pick up on your own, because these are experts. These are people who've lived there their whole life. I'm a little bit weary of certain tours I've seen where it's somebody from New Zealand this is their second time in the Dolomites and they're the guide. Like, I don't know. But you can easily vet guided companies, like if people actually have lived there and like it's their lifestyle. Okay. As far as budgeting and cost goes, this is hard. It depends on where you're coming from, etc. The vast majority of the mountain huts are half board, meaning breakfast, dinner, and your bed is paid for. Lunches are on your own. Any alcohol is on your own, and any sort of colas or soft drinks are on your own. You have to pay for showers often as well. If you're staying in hotels, it's in the Alps, so it's usually bed and breakfast, but you can see that very easily on your on your booking software. Transportation, this is if you're going to use gondolas or the taxis or buses, that's going to be part of it. And of course, your transportation to get there is a major, major expense. As far as like a base rate, take everything I say, and then if it's in Switzerland, add 30%. But generally in France and Italy, we're looking at 60 to 95 euros per person for shared accommodation in the mountain refuge. Some are a little cheaper. And if you have an Alpine Club membership, it's even cheaper, which is a really good idea. And they also give you travel insurance, or rescue insurance, which you should have, and you should pay for that if you're not part of the Alpine, some other organization. As far as the buses go from the airport, they're about 30 euro. It's not too bad. Again, and hotels, like I would say base is 100 per person. If you are trying to stay in Chamonix, Courmayeur, it can go even higher and higher and higher, depending on how late you book and how busy it is, or if you're around holiday, etc. Okay. The other expense is your gear, but you don't need a lot. You need a backpack and you need shoes and some rain gear and some sun gear. Not a lot. Okay, as far as packing, I'm not going to go deep into packing because I'm going to do another YouTube video specifically about Tour du Mont Blanc packing. But the cool thing is it's just a light backpack. If you're doing more than 30 liters, what's going on? Stop. Don't do it. That's the whole point of this hike, is that you don't have to have a heavy backpack. You just need to bring water and some, one change of clothes. Everyone stinks. And even if you bring tons of clothes, those are going to stink too. So don't even worry about it. The other thing is shoes. Oh my gosh, I cannot tell you how many of my friends come with brand new shoes and they're like, why do my feet hurt? And why do I have a million blisters? Stop. Boots or trainers, or not trainers, but like hiking shoes. If that's up to you, that's your preference, but they need to be broken in and you need to have field tested them beforehand. The last thing that's really important for packing that people forget is stuff to deal with blisters. Even if you have the best shoes, you probably still get them. There's a lot of downhill, your toes get squished. So bring enough hydration and blister management tools to be able to continue and not be miserable on the hike. So hot tip, bring the hydration tablets, not liquids, because those tablets, the magnesium and sodium and potassium, they really help a lot. And they're lightweight. I can't tell you how many people I gave tablets to the last time I was going hiking. All right. So as promised, the 7 biggest mistakes for people that fail, let's call it that, they fail to be able to continue on the hike. So the first thing is the planning. And the planning has to happen a year in advance, pretty much. And the planning needs to be detailed, because if you've mistakenly planned a 30-kilometer day and that's outside your wheelhouse, you're not going to make it. And you might be able to do a workaround, but a lot of times you can't. And then the whole thing is a bust, right? So it's really important to plan your route, your refuges, making sure that you have places to stay each night, because maybe as a solo person, if you're so lucky, and I kind of doubt it, you might be able to find a place to sleep. Very rare. You need to secure the places you're sleeping and the distances you're going and have options for bad weather. The other thing is, of course, people who fail, they don't have the right footwear for them. It's not broken in, or it doesn't fit right, or they're like, oh, these are cute. Oh, I hear that a lot. I got these boots because they were cute. Okay. Your feet, take care of your feet. And I'm saying this as a physical therapist, take care of your feet. And there's no one perfect shoe or boot for everyone. It's up to you. The other mistake is the 30 and 40-pound backpack. It breaks people down and they just can't see the forest through the trees. They can't see the glaciers through the air because they're so miserable, and their back hurts and their legs hurt and everything is their neck, everything. So packing too much is awful. But on the other token, don't be like my husband and not bring trekking poles. That they sound goofy for a lot of people, but they work on the downhills. They help a lot on the uphills too. I ended up giving my trekking poles to my husband, and I magically found one on the trail that someone had discarded. So I was really grateful. The other mistake is not being hydrated. So I say electrolytes here. If you don't need electrolytes, you're very adapted, but water at a minimum. You're going to need 2 to 3 liters a day at a minimum, carrying in your bag. It can get pretty hot. It can get really hot. It can also get really cold, but you need to stay hydrated for this hike. And there's not a ton of places to stop and get water. As far as the other mistake is it like going out too fast? I think this is classic. Oh yeah, I'm going. And then you burn out and your muscles can't replenish themselves and your pacing is off. So generally speaking, you don't want to crush it at the beginning. It's like any other test of endurance. You need to know where you're at and stay within your range. If it means you need to take a longer day or take more frequent rests, that's great. Air out, take your socks off, air out your feet, prevent blisters. Breaks are great. And the final thing, this is, people can be very fit. They can be very active. Something about the uphills can just crush them. Maybe they're more power athletes, they're used to weight training or, they're like low carb and super fit, but that stamina to go uphill, to be able to grind it out, that's very important. And if you're coming from a flat place, it is essential to find a place to train with incline. Could be stadium steps if you live in, Holland or something, but practicing and training that uphill stamina is super important. Okay, so as far as getting in touch, if you have more questions or you want to learn more, I'm actually building out my Tour du Mont Blanc section on my YouTube channel, which is Crave the Planet. Right now, I have 4 or 5 videos just of the experience. It's kind of goofy iPhone stuff from like last year. This year, when we're going to bring some tripods and make it actually a little bit better, but it can give you a feel for what the days are like on the southern section. We usually go for just a week at a time because we're American, we don't have that many holidays. So the southern section, you can kind of see the whole way along. It's really cool. And I'm going to be doing packing videos and also sort of like injury prevention. So with my PT knowledge. And if you have any questions or if you'd like me to email you any of the spreadsheets, the planning spreadsheets that I have, you can just send an email to hello@cravetheplanet.com and I'll get back to you. There's no need to reinvent the wheel on these spreadsheets because they take so long to figure out and it's, might as well share it, right? Okay, so as far as questions go, this is an AMA and I want to take a look, see if there's some questions. What do we have here? Okay. Yes, this is a great one. So the question is, what is the best time to hike the Tour du Mont Blanc? That's a very easy one, July and August. You can go in June and you can go in September. You can, but especially if you're traveling from overseas, I wouldn't want to risk it. September 1st, many of the huts close. The gondolas shut down. The weather is unpredictable. It's just even worse in July and September. I think a lot of people go in September because it's near a holiday or, it's a little less crowded. August is I'm not going to lie, it's a total bitch in Italy to travel in August. But, this is your weather window where you have the least chance of having crazy events. This year was just full of crazy events. And unfortunately, there were quite a few fatalities on Mont Blanc. I don't necessarily know if it was people doing the tour. I know there was one for sure. I know a lot of climbers were having issues with climate change, that it's like what the trends were where people were trying to be predictive, that has even swayed further. So it's always been unpredictable. It's always been difficult, but now it's even more wacky. So I would say July and August is the time to do this. Okay. So another question is, so where do you go if you don't want to plan it yourself, but you want someone to do this work for you? So, the independent booking is you do everything yourself. The self-guided is the business does everything for you, except they don't walk with you. Or there's a guided tour where you go in, with a guide with you in real life. So I have found I did a lot of research. I've used two companies so far, and I've done a lot of research and talked to people who have utilized services. And I actually created a post on my site called the best TMB planners. And on there, I have reviews of different companies that are highly regarded. They're local or they're women-owned businesses. I have stayed away from the conglomerates. There's so many, like when you go on Facebook or you go on YouTube, a lot of times these sort of mega conglomerates, they're just like travel agents. You have no idea if they're even hikers. You have no idea if they're even European. There's so many out there. And I've avoided those and put the local and, more like honest businesses that help people either self-guided or guided trips. What's cool is you can even make a long weekend out of it and do a 4-day, which is great. Or you can do the whole thing. Okay, we got questions about gear. I'm going to go over that in a further video. And budget, same thing. I'll do a more detailed breakdown. We don't have enough time today to get into that. But if you do it yourself, somewhere between 60 to 100 a day, I would budget at a minimum before you start buying fancy stuff or like gifts or whatever. The cool thing is like, you don't have to pay for a lot of activities, and really there's not much shopping. I mean, I got some cool sunglasses last year in Courmayeur. There's some nice hiking shoes in case yours fall apart, but this isn't a trip where you're needing to find things to do. Okay. Altitude sickness. Yes, this is another good question. All right. So I've heard this before. It's not really a problem for most people. In fact, the highest point on the Tour du Mont Blanc is 2,584 meters, which is 8,478 feet. If you're very sensitive, you might start to feel something. Most people don't ever begin to get to the point where they have any problems whatsoever with altitude sickness on this trail. It seems like you're really high, but you're not. And so to address this, like, of course, you want to speak with a doctor or a medic, but if you notice any sort of like headache or sick or dizzy, it's kind of hard because you kind of feel that way because you're, slugging up a mountain. But if it's very sharp, you need to descend, which is not hard because at almost every point in the trail, it's a quick way down. And once you get down out of the high altitude, you'll be able to recover. So make sure if you're prone to it, you talk with your doctor about that. Okay. I have a question here about training. And again, that's too much for today. I'm going to put that on the list to make a specific video about, because I love training. I'm a CrossFit coach, yoga teacher, PT. I love all the training stuff. I think people should train because it's generally like makes you more happy when you're not like miserable because you're unfit to do this thing that's expensive, and it can be an iconic time. Okay. All right. Well, so I think that's it. And I appreciate you joining me today. And if I could ask a favor, I'm trying to get my YouTube channel growing. So if you could go to YouTube and type in Crave the Planet and subscribe to my channel, that would be really, really helpful.